Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
Welcome back to Marvelous Disney with Dan Graney, the podcast that discusses the most recent doings at one of the more dynamic divisions at the Walt Disney Company, which is, of course, Marvel Entertainment. This is entertainment writer Jim Hill and my co-host, the always dapper-looking Dan Graney. He and I are recording this week's episode on Sunday, November 9th. And again, Dan, we were just talking about how fashionable, again, this is the problem. It's a podcast. People can't say how fashionable you are, but you have your lovely green glasses and your Creature from the Black Lagoon tiki shirt. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, I do have a number of shirts. And when my wife asked me how many is too many when it comes to tiki and Hawaiian shirts, I just said, challenge accepted. So we will find out at some point.
Okay. I used to wear a number of Hawaiian shirts and tiki shirts until the day I went to Disney Studios. I forget what junket I was there for, and a woman in the elevator, asked me if I was John Lasseter's brother. It was one of these things where, knowing how John looks, it was like, boy, I don't think that's a compliment. So I kind of went the other direction, which is why I'm wearing a very boring beige and gray ensemble this evening. But anyway, folks, you're not here to hear about that. You're here to hear about Marvel, and again, we try, Dan and I try to stay on top of the most recent stuff for Marvel. And in fact, just today, a trailer dropped for Lego Marvel Avengers Strange Tales. And by the way, folks, that's TAILS. And it's this 2-part animated thing that I guess is debuting later this week on the 14th. Did you get a chance to eyeball that at all, Dan?
I was trying to look for it just before this, because I was like, I have to be honest, Jim, this thing snuck right past me like a cat.
Well, yes. In fact, that's what evidently this whole thing is about. It's a well, all right, we'll just read the log line. All right, so it's Hawkeye and the Avengers have made saving the world look easy, but now they faced their wildest threat yet, social media. And in order to save the world, the team must be recruited, or a new team must be recruited to help our heroes contend with an influencer bent on cataclysmic destruction. And by the way, the cat... You get it. Okay. But anyway, long story short, this is about, what is it? The Hawkeye and the Black Panther, in order to deal with this attack, have to enlist the superpower help of Tigra, Black Cat, and White Tiger. So these are the Cat Vengers. All right. Now, just a quick side note before we get to the show proper. With his Lego show debuting again on November 14th on Disney Plus, did eyeball what Lego has been doing this past year in regard to sets. And what's interesting, Dan, is that they seem to have been leaning into these sets that celebrate key moments from big MCU projects. I mean, for example, there's an Avengers Endgame Final Battle set. Likewise, a Captain America Civil War action battle. And one that I especially enjoyed, the Spider-Man versus Doc Ock subway train scene from, I guess, that would have been Spider-Man 2, right?
2.
Yeah.
2, yeah.
Yeah.
2 and 2.5, don't forget.
Also true. Anyway, it just, so they're leaning into memorable moments from previous MCU films. And it'll be interesting going ahead here, because later on today's show, we'll be talking about Doomsday and Secret Wars, and it'd be interesting to see what Lego does a few years down the lines with memorable scenes from those. So, But anyway, speaking of which, though, we need to get to the show proper started here. So, and before we do that, we need to acknowledge our sponsor, which is unlockmagic.com, where you get real discounts on Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando tickets, sometimes upwards of 12% off. And again, folks, just so you know, Unlock Magic is run by the same team behind the DVC rental store and the DVC resale market. So you contact them, you pick your dates, you grab your tickets. And by the way, these tickets include after hours events, like Mickey's Very Merry, that is now running on select nights between December 21st, and Jollywood Nights, which debuted just this past week with giant crowds at the studio. I don't know if you saw any of the image of that, but it's like, woof. But that's running through December 22nd. But anyway, unlockmagic.com. Get your theme park tickets there and tell them that, well, it was Dan and Jim that sent you. Now, we can get now to the actual news on this week's show. And that's doom-sized, right?
It's definitely some doom-sized news this week. But there's been a couple other things that have popped up that
and
bear mentioning.
They do. In fact, we were just talking about that Lego Marvel Avengers Strange Tales thing that Hawkeye is sort of the lead character of that, which brings to mind the really for real actor who plays Hawkeye in the MCU, Jeremy Renner, who of course had that horrible accident back on New Year's Day in 2023. But he's been back in the news this past week, and not necessarily in a good way.
That's right. There was some reports, and it's not very wide yet, but it is something that, obviously we need to mention this. There's been some reports of inappropriate behavior on the set of his most recent film project.
Yeah, and what's kind of ironic here is what helped Jeremy, because again, as Dan mentioned, the story hasn't spread all that wide, is because David Harbour, who plays the Red Guardian in the MCU, he was also in the news this week. This sort of came on the heels of the premiere of, or the lead up to the premiere of Stranger Things season 5.
Yeah, that just same week, all of this.
Yeah. So and again, in this situation, it's supposedly about bullying. Anyway, right now, folks, want to stress here, these are only allegations. In fact, Renner and Harbour have both denied these allegations, which is why Dan and I will continue to follow these stories and report on any further developments. But we're just going to leave it at that for now.
Yeah, I mean, we're in no way in a position to say much more. Obviously, there's not a lot being said. And if you saw any of the red carpet footage, David Harbour and Millie Bobby Brown were, posing for pictures. And while the Duffer Brothers and Sean Levy, who's an executive producer, they were being asked about it. Nobody was being coy, but they were saying, this is a family environment. We take this very seriously, but they were not saying a whole lot more. So it's one of those things that, the rest of the world, we just don't know. So for now, we're just going to leave it.
There we go. All right. So anyway, again, we are recording today's show on November 9th. So we're 3 weeks out for Thanksgiving. So we are in the middle of the holiday season. We were just talking about those Marvel Lego sets for 2025. We're going to end up under somebody's Christmas tree. But Dan, you also came across, there's a full-on retail effort that Marvel's putting out this year called, what is it? Unwrap the Universe, is that right?
Unwrap the Universe. Yeah, it's a big deal, and it's starting to appear. I've actually found some information on the Marvel, their main homepage, And it's their holiday campaign. Basically, they're inviting fans to discover the hero within.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a number of items, as specialty items, a little bit further beyond the usual collection of toys and action figures and your usual T-shirts or jammies and stuff like that. Like one of the things I saw was the X-Men varsity jacket. Now it's an exclusive to Shoe Palace. I don't know if that's a regional retailer. I don't know. It might be available online. And then there's also a Spider-Man travel set by Jay Franco. And then more of the things that more people are used to, like there's a 24-day countdown calendar, aka Advent calendar by Biddy Pop. It has many collectibles and pins and keychains. So I don't know. In a way, I feel like Marvel's just basically trying to tell everybody that holiday Hulk fists for all.
Yes, especially for those problematic relatives you invite for Thanksgiving. So, lighten the mood. Oh, well, okay. So, and if our listeners want to check this out, they can find out more over at marvel.com.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think you're gonna you and Lauren are gonna be probably going a little bit deeper on this. I'm sure.
I will contact Miss Hersey, and we will definitely eyeball this over on our Disney merch podcast. I want that too. So we'll look for that show shortly.
Okay, and with that, I think we can officially say the holidays are here. Cue the harumph.
Right. Okay.
I'm glad that you appreciate that, Jim. Some people may not know what that means.
I didn't get a harumph from that guy. Again, you got to watch Blazing Saddles, folks, to get that. Okay. So we teased at the top of the show today. We have a Doom size bit of news. So let's talk about what we've heard rumors about this for a while, but let's talk about what finally did, in fact, get confirmed this week.
Oh, that's right. Well, we have finally have a date for the first look at Avengers Doomsday. Collider broke the news. They confirmed that the trailer will premiere ahead of Avatar Fire and Ash on December 19th, 2025. So this is going to be Marvel's biggest trailer event since Endgame. Now, here's what we know. Principal photography wrapped on September 19th. Obviously, the Russos are back at the helm. We know that Robert Downey Jr. is back, not as Tony Stark, as Dr. Doom, who is the big villain, the big bad. And, if for anybody who saw the chair video, we know that there's a pretty substantial crossover of heroes in this. We know the Fantastic Four, Thor, Ant-Man, Yelena, the Thunderbolts. Also, the Fox era X-Men. We saw Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, James Marsden, Alan Cumming, which was a big surprise, but he just seemed thrilled to death to be part of this, and Rebecca Romijn as Mystique.
Wow.
So we also know Chris Evans denied being involved, though Kevin Feige did tease that not every chair has been revealed. And if you saw Chris Evans recently, he's going to need a bigger chair because that guy, he got bulk. He got bulked up again. Not saying it's for this, but maybe he just felt like, adding some extra, size for the upcoming cold season. Anyway, the expected tone is going to be darker, obviously multiversal, and it's going to lead directly into its sequel, which will be Avengers Secret Wars, which is scheduled for December 2027.
Okay, so let's be honest here. I mean, Endgame, Infinity War Endgame did a brilliant job of creating an event, that we all went to theaters and we all had an amazing time. In fact, there were so many of the videos, online of, just taken to the theaters where you can listen to the audience's reaction. So, but let's face it, in the time since then, Eternals, Quantumania. So I guess what I'm asking here is, I believe in the Russo brothers as filmmakers, but this is 6 years later now, and what do you think? Can they catch lightning in the bottle again?
Well, this is fair, and maybe we could even call this phase fix. But here's what I'll tell you.
Okay.
Here's what I think.
Mhm.
I think we got a glimmer of what this can feel like from Wolverine, Deadpool, and Wolverine. And that's that we're going, before we saw all the characters of the MCU coming together, but they were from an established timeline and an established world, the 616, the planet. Obviously, we know that the X-Men are going to be part of this. Now, that's from another Earth. That's how they're positioning it. I think the idea of bringing together all of these worlds, and we don't know how far or how deep or how far back they're going to go. And for anybody who saw the Flash movie, I mean, we saw a little bit of that idea. Did you see that, Jim?
I did, and of course the sequence you're referring to is when basically all of the DC worlds, including again that weird moment where we get Nicolas Cage fighting a spider, just sort of like
fighting a giant spider.
There we go.
Yes. So I think this is going to be akin to that, although I feel like they're going to tap a nostalgia that people want. So I think they're going to be able to deliver. I think they know the stakes here.
Well, now it's speaking of which, we did also just in the past week or so, Simu Liu, the gentleman who plays Shang-Chi in Legend of the Ten Rings, he talked about this project. And got to tell you, I was very heartened to hear what he was saying about this project.
Oh yeah, it's funny. He actually just said that this movie is a love letter to the entire genre of superhero movies and to the underdogs that believe in them. I mean that is a very hopeful quote. But I also feel it's interesting because he talked about working alongside a lot of his childhood heroes. He's working with. He's so excited about Chris Hemsworth and Anthony Mackie and Paul Rudd, even Vanessa Kirby and Florence Pugh, who are newer to the MCU but very central characters to where they are now. And he said, "Doomsday is really for all the misfits and weirdos who grew up reading comics and believing they could be heroes." So, I mean, he's approaching this with a little bit of fandom. So the idea that this could be a hopeful and self-aware movie, I take hope in that myself.
Yeah, same here. But okay. But as we're discussing here, I mean, again, Shang-Chi, we have one hero, finding their footing in the MCU. But at least according to the reports over the last week or so, we may have another effectively getting ready to take their final bow, right?
This is definitely, if this is true, this one is a big kick in the nostalgia for anybody who's been a fan. And we're talking about, obviously, Sir Patrick Stewart, who may retire after Avengers Doomsday. Now, this is a report that right now it's a rumor from YouTuber Christian Harloff, unconfirmed. So let's read it as a rumor, but the word has been spread that Stewart, who's 85 years old, intends to retire from acting after Doomsday. Now, I mean, the man's been around for a long time.
Oh yeah, and it's also worth pointing out here that if we shift just for a second over to the world of Star Trek. Fans of Next Generation were just thrilled with, those 3 seasons of Picard and how that effectively gave, Next Gen the finale that they really deserved. Don't get me wrong, I'm one of 5 people on the planet who actually liked Nemesis. But it would have been interesting to see them continue that story. But yeah, that so if you think about it from that point of view, he's already sort of put Picard to bed. So, maybe that's what's about to happen with Charles Xavier.
Well, I mean, he has revisited the character twice. I mean, we saw him, and that's since Logan, which was
Yeah.
2017.
Yes.
He was briefly in Doctor Strange. He was a variant, but he was in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness briefly. And then now he'll be back again in Doomsday. There is the expectation that he'll die on screen, which I kind of hope not personally, because we saw him die in X-Men 3, but then he didn't, because he came back.
Yeah.
And then we saw him die in Logan, which was permanent. And then we saw him fail in a showdown with Wanda in Multiverse of Madness. I was like, can we not have him die?
Well, just how many actors get to have a 3 different death scenes with the same character? But
well, I mean, when they have an authentic Shakespearean actor in the role, they're going to give him his death.
Oh yeah.
So fair enough. They just have given him 3 already.
Okay, but again, well, that's the thing. It's hard not to argue that Patrick Stewart is Marvel royalty. I mean, I think, as you pointed out in your show notes today, that he's been around since before there was a Marvel Studios.
Gosh, yes.
So
you can, he's been making movies. Obviously, he's been on the stage for that's where he came from, but also making movies all the way back to roles in Excalibur, the John Boorman movie.
There we go. Yeah.
So I mean, he and obviously Next Generation, which when that came out, people were a little hesitant on like, I don't know, this is no James T. Kirk, and now for many, Next Generation is their Star Trek. So
it is. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll know a little more come, what is it? Late December now with Avatar: Fire and Ice, and all right. I guess I'm going to a theater to see a trailer. So,
well, that unless they decide to post it online, which they may.
Oh, true.
They might. They've done that before. But if you want to see it on the big screen, that's the movie to see it with.
Okay.
But before all of this and before Doomsday, there was somebody else, at bat, who was gonna be the big bad, and that was Kang. So we've got the story of he who doesn't remain anymore, finally being shared.
Ooh, okay. But folks, we'll get to that in a moment. But first, this.
Hello, I'm Chris Cox, and I've teamed up with Len Tester to argue before our judge, Jim Hill, as he presides over us on our new podcast, The Case For with Chris Cox. In every episode, Len and I will argue about the big Disney debates like park hopping, early entry, and whether churros count as a food group. Whether you're planning a trip or just love Disney debates, it's the perfect podcast for you. Search The Case For with Chris Cox wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. This Monday night, witness the end of an era. John Cena takes center stage for his final appearance ever on Monday Night Raw. One last match, one unforgettable farewell. Come celebrate the legacy of a true WWE legend. Monday Night Raw, November 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix. Be there for the moment everyone will be talking about.
And we're back. Okay, so Dan, you were alluding to just before the break there. Once upon a time, the big bad for the 2 Avengers event movies that were coming out next year and the year after was Kang. And but first film of that, the Kang Dynasty, got scrapped. And you've come across some very interesting things that the writers of Loki and Doctor Strange 2 as well as one of the folks who worked in Quantum Mania.
That's right.
What was potentially going to happen?
That's right. Okay, so Loki and Doctor Strange 2 writer Michael Waldron and Quantum Mania writer Jeff Loveness, they pitched a sort of a fun twist, which would be unexpected. But the idea was that the Young Avengers were going to be taking down an inexperienced first day version of Kang, like an intern version of Kang. You remember at the end of Quantum Mania, after the credits, they had the scene with the Council of Kangs, and all these Kangs were showing up in a big arena. Well, Waldron, who's a co-writer on Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, he revealed their pitch during a Reddit AMA, and they said that they were going to have a scene where the Young Avengers defeat a Kang variant early in the film, and then only to find a note on this person saying, sort of please be patient with him. It's his first day as a Kang. So sort of like, when you see the drivers on the road as a student driver, that's basically what their version of that. And this variant apparently was going to be the Lizard Kang, which we actually saw on screen in Quantum Mania.
Interesting.
Yeah, we see him. He's very far to the right. So tone-wise, this was going to lean a little bit more into the humor that with a lot of multiversal chaos that we saw in Loki. And the idea was that the show they were going to show how the Kang Dynasty arc leaned more towards a comic book tone before Marvel pivoted to Doomsday. And they will say this and they keep saying this, and it's like eventually this will just be the reality. But Waldron's story confirms what Kevin Feige later admitted. He said that they just felt like Kang wasn't big enough for the franchise's next saga.
Wow. Well, I guess what kind of intrigues me about that, though, is in a weird sort of way, it's kind of a switcheroo of, if you think about how dark Infinity Wars was, and then Endgame was that much more, don't get me wrong, there were some very dark moments in Endgame as well, but that was triumphant in the notion to go with a more comic book playful tone for the first film. And then, it's hard to look at Doomsday and think, oh, well, that's going to be fun and uplifting. With a name like that.
It's going to be a laugh riot.
There we go. All right. Well, all right. Well, okay. Now, speaking of, this new generation. You just talked about the new Avengers, the Young Avengers. There's a lot of aspect about this project coming up about sort of passing the torch, right?
That's right. And one such character that that people have been speculating for years, including the fact that this character had another movie, and that's the Letitia Wright's Shuri, the Black Panther as we know her now. And Geek Tyrant actually had a report that says that she will remain the MCU's main Black Panther for the foreseeable future. But we'll also see other characters taking up the mantle, possibly in side stories. There's Scooper, My Time to Shine. Hello. He said that we might see multiple Black Panthers introduced. And I think we've sort of seen that through Eyes of Wakanda. We've seen it in, obviously, in Zombies. And we also, even in the history of the character, Chadwick Boseman wasn't the first Black Panther in the MCU.
That's
his father
excellent point. You're right.
T'Chaka, before T'Challa. So the idea that there's multiple characters, this is something that comes from the comic books. But Shuri is going to be the Black Panther in Avengers Doomsday. But even at the end of Wakanda Forever, we saw Toussaint, who was secretly T'Challa's son. So there's the idea that there's another character that could possibly take over. And we know that in the comics, Shuri and T'Challa have both been Black Panther at the same time. Shuri was a ruler, T'Challa was king of the dead. So, there's always speculation. I think there always will be speculation. A lot of that comes just from the sudden, as far as the general population passing of Chadwick Boseman. But there's another actor, Damson Idris, who was even people swear he's going to be the next Black Panther. He even walked red carpet, with many of the stars from Black Panther. So, but he played coy with it and just said, no, not part of that. But it's just, what Marvel's doing is maintaining their current approach. There's legacies, there's shared mantles. Obviously, there's the generational storytelling. And like I said, with Black Panther, there's been multiple Black Panthers. There always will be multiple Black Panthers. And we might even have, multiple Black Panthers at the same time.
Okay.
So,
all right, but what's kind of appropriate here is that this echoes what we saw after Chadwick Boseman's sad passing. That that sense of shared responsibility.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it is. They recognize that this is bigger than one person, but they are so they still keep Chadwick in their hearts, and they keep Shuri the focus of the character.
Okay,
for now.
And let's also be honest, from a storytelling point of view. I mean, yes, we have 2 giant films coming out, next year and the year after that. Doomsday and Secret Wars, but you still only have so much screen time, and the notion of in the middle of servicing all of these legacy X-Men and folks like the Fantastic Four coming in, the fact that, and let's go to Wakanda where there's a regime change. It's like, okay, that may be a bridge too far.
I mean, they're definitely tapped out on characters, and at a certain point this is going to be, it's a mad
there we go so all right, that's an excellent comparison. Just Jerry Lewis was in there for a whole 15 seconds. Okay, there we go.
Exactly.
All right.
They're the Three Stooges in their last appearance ever.
Yes, as the fireman. Okay, now, speaking of alternate realities, let's take this question to to an extreme here. I mean, 'cause we're talking about almost 40 films at this point. But and let alone all of the limited series and animation projects over in Disney Plus. But Dan, what if there were no MCU?
Well, that's a great question. And Screen Rant actually posted this, and I caught this article. I was like, we need to talk about this. And they basically said, would Marvel exist without the MCU, or would Marvel Comics, as we know it, exist without the MCU? And it is a bit of a what if scenario, and it goes all the way back to 2008 when Iron Man came out, and because that did transform Marvel from, at the time, a struggling publisher into the studio, legitimate studio that they are today. Because before then, Marvel, the history, they were licensing their characters out piecemeal. We talked about Frank Price, for instance. Ike Perlmutter. I mean, I think X-Men and Spider-Man and all of this that history, and they changed hands so many times. But when Iron Man came out, they proved that they could succeed more or less on their own. They could, and you might remember Iron Man, it was one of the few characters they could actually make a movie of, because everything else was licensed out to all these other studios.
Yeah, it was a very strange time, and in fact, I remember there's this famous story about Michael Eisner where, remember, Marvel was just coming out of bankruptcy, and it was, and again, this was Michael Eisner, the guy who, chased the Muppets, the guy who bought ESPN and ABC. And, the opportunity to acquire Marvel through back channels came at Eisner. And he took a cold-blooded look at it. And what was fascinating is Michael said, nope, bad fit for us.
Mhm.
And, in fact, supposedly Eisner said, now, on the other hand, if DC had become available, I could see Superman coming to Disney, but I can't see Spider-Man. And it's just, and I always wondered what Michael Eisner thinks now. Looking at, no, that really did work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and to be fair, at that point, 1978 Superman, which is even Kevin Feige considers that one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. So that could be in the back of Mr. Eisner's mind. But as far as the comic books, I mean, yes, the MCU does influence the comics, and they do push synergy back and forth. They time releases. There's always character spotlights, and sales do spike around MCU releases. But I mean, the fact is, long-term readership hasn't really grown that much. And if we were to look at it with that kind of what if scenario in mind, sure, Marvel could have been sold off or shuttered or absorbed by another company. I mean, they've, like we said, they've changed hands many times. But Disney's 2009 acquisition, I mean, that's a result of Iron Man's success.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I mean, some argue, that the comics may have lost a little bit of their independence, and they do become a little bit of a feeder system following the lead of the MCU.
But but at the same time, when you look at where they are today, the MCU, and more to the point, when you look at just what happened within the past 2 and 3 years over at DC Studios, the notion of, we have gone so far down the wrong road here, and let's get somebody who's actually been part of the MCU revival and to bring James Gunn over there, and to watch what he's doing now. Which again, to bring this sort of full circle to our very first episode, where you made that prediction about the MCU Marvel crossover, or DC Marvel MCU crossover, and again, I keep a candle lit here at the house, just remain ever hopeful that that's actually going to happen. So
I think it will. I believe it will. But and I think the Marvel Comics would be quite happy with it, as they are currently working with DC in print. So that's all I got to say about that.
They are. All right. And of course, when the MCU, or excuse me, Marvel Entertainment got acquired by Disney, we of course saw this stuff start to go into the parks. And when we get back from this break, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that the Imagineers wanted to put in the parks that didn't happen. But before that, there's this.
REI Co-op presents a perfect outdoor moment with the perfect gift. Picture this. You're ripping with your favorite person. Bluebird skies, blower powder, and frankly, you're skiing like legends.
So sick. Another lap?
Thanks to REI's curation, from lid to sticks, you nailed the gift.
No way. How'd you know?
Does it get more perfect than that? Give without guessing. Shop in store or visit rei.com.
I turned off news altogether.
I hate to say it, but I don't trust much of anything.
It's the rage bait.
It feels like it's trying to divide people.
If we got clear facts, maybe we can calm down a little.
NBC News brings you clear reporting. Let's meet at the facts. Let's move forward from there. NBC News, reporting for America.
And we're back. So, on last week's show, or excuse me, the earlier edition, last month of the Marvelous Disney podcast, Dan and I were talking about the construction that's going on at California Adventure of the Infinity Defense Building, and how that project is hard charging. But it is worth noting that Well, I think we talked about this, that even that attraction is what, the second or third version of that ride that we're supposed to go into the building?
Yeah. They've even when that was built, we saw that there was a lot more building there than, just having Doctor Strange coming out and doing some magic tricks. I mean, we saw, what was it? D23, I think in the early Disney Forward, concept art, there was a big Wakanda expansion. Wasn't that right?
Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, this piece of art. Now, this is the early days of the Disneyland Forward project. And for those of you who don't know about this is the next 20, 30 years in Anaheim, because that's, our pal Jim Schul, a veteran Imagineer, describes the Disneyland Resort as a Swiss watch, that every time you put something in, something else has to come out. However, on the periphery of Disneyland, the Disneyland Resort, there are these areas that were designated as parking lots that in the most recent dealings with the city of Anaheim, Disney is trying to get them rezoned with the notion of, well, we'd like to maybe put some motels in there, or we'd like to expand our theme parks. And what Dan is referring to is there was a piece of concept art that showed effectively that California Adventure would actually, through a series of bridges, extend over Disneyland Drive, and in one of these parking lots I'm alluded to, that if you look down at it from above, and that was the artwork they gave us, it's like, wait a minute, that's the giant panther. Is it a sculpture or a natural figure coming out of a mountain?
It's like it's like a sculpture in the same way that we see Rushmore.
Okay, there we go.
Sitting, it's jutting out of a mountain, but it was a giant black panther.
It was, and it was the notion of that. There was going to be a land in that park strictly celebrating Wakanda, and now I have to stress here again, this artwork came out in the early days of Disneyland Forward, March of 2021. This was supposedly a preliminary idea for the expansion of DCA. It has not shown up in subsequent plans for that park, but that doesn't mean that the Imagineers aren't holding that back. I mean, because sometimes things don't happen for reasons that are entirely out of your control. Like, for example, and this is always kind of a heartbreaker. Whenever folks go to the Avengers campus in Anaheim right now, there is a Quinjet parked on top of, in fact, I guess it's the gift shop right now, but every so often a stunt show will break out over the gift shop with, various Marvel characters battling up there. But what's interesting is that gift shop is supposed to be the post-show gift shop for Infinity Defense, that once that attraction comes online, to the right, you will actually enter the show in an entirely different building. But again, you'll exit through this gift shop that has been there since, Avengers Campus opened in 2021, 2022. But anyway, what was supposed to be really cool about the Avengers campus in Anaheim, and by the way, this, remember, we have two Avengers campuses. There's one at Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris, soon to become Disney Adventure World. But the idea was that you'd be in the park and you'd suddenly hear the noise of a Quinjet, and then suddenly, above, rising up behind the building was an actual Quinjet, which would land on the roof, and then you'd see Avengers get out, and now, mind you, that was a fake out, the Avengers getting off of the vehicle, because this was an industrial drone that Disney wanted to use. And in fact, it several times a day, it would either land and then depart. But here's the thing, that Disney had worked with a company that does these giant things, and they had a design that they liked, and they had a system that worked, and then they brought in Disney Legal, and it's like, and Disney Legal basically told them, said, look, anytime this thing is off the ground, we're going to need 2 cast members who have direct line of sight, who both have kill buttons. And in the event that, this thing drifts over, the park, a public area of the park, over guests, we're going to have to shut this down. And it just, the cost of having 2 cast members sit there all day, being the eye in the sky, so to speak, coupled with the fact that legal was just making this so difficult, that's why we went from a Quinjet flying in and flying out to a Quinjet parked on the roof.
And there it is.
There we go. So,
well, now, is this the same company that built? Now, they did have a full-size X-Wing for Galaxy's Edge.
Well,
that was also a drone.
It was.
But they only did that. Now, I mean, there's video of it. And you can find it on YouTube. But
yes,
that's not something that they do regularly.
No. In fact, it's worth pointing out that was done for the opening night party for Galaxy's Edge, and it never came back. And it was the notion of, legal, to the effect of, look, enjoy your complimentary shrimp. Let us do this one night. All right. And then, then we'll park it backstage and no one will ever see it again, and it's like, all right, fine.
Yeah. That was the big forgiveness factor, I'm assuming.
There we go. And then more recently, if we pivot now to Hong Kong Disneyland, which when that park opened in 2005, got a reputation for basically being a clone of the original Disneyland in Anaheim. And the owners of the park got offended at that. It's like, no, we want new stuff. In fact, we won't take classic Disney theme park attractions anymore. Like, for example, they don't have a Haunted Mansion, but they do have a Mystic Manor.
Right.
And they don't have a Star Tours, but they do have an Iron Man experience. And so one of the things that they wanted at that park was a Tower of Terror like thing, but they didn't want the version that we have stateside, that's Twilight Zone themed. They didn't want the one at Tokyo Disney Seas where it's what is it? Weird adventurer who looks like Joe Rody. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Hightower.
Harrison Hightower. There we go.
Harrison Hightower and Society of Explorers and Adventurers.
There we go. And Dan knows his Disney. Yeah. Okay. But what they wanted to do was that in place of an older abandoned building, you were going to come across a sleek, modern, up-to-date Oscorp building, and as you made your way through the queue, you were going to find out you're, going, being taken to the topmost floor, where Norman Osborn was going to show off some new tech, and of course, something goes horribly wrong, and suddenly you are in between a battle with the Green Goblin and Spidey, effectively, it's like, get out of here, and forces you into an industrial elevator, and he's trying to get you out of the building, and then suddenly above you in the shaft is, it is the Green Goblin who cuts the cables for your elevator, and you are plummeting now to the bottom of the building, and you are only saved at the last minute by Peter Parker, who slings a web and effectively slows and it was a wonderful idea, and more to the point, the notion of to come up to this sleek glass exterior of, the Oscorp building and to be able to see these elevators full of people going up and down, would have been very cool. And, but again, the interesting thing is the folks who are in Hong Kong Disneyland, They were like, well, yeah, look, we already have attractions that celebrate one Marvel franchise, and we'd mentioned the Iron Man experience that opened January of 2017, and then that was followed by Ant-Man and the Wasp Nano Battle that opened in Hong Kong March of 2019, and that replaced that park's Astro Blasters, and so Hong Kong, and what's kind of interesting about this, given what's being built, Affinity Defense Anaheim, is Hong Kong, they wanted an attraction with multiple Avengers. And so did you get to see this piece of concept art that they put out about this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So can you tell the nice folks who's there, or at least in the piece of art?
Oh my gosh. We're talking about, obviously Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor was in there, and Black Panther.
Well, there we go.
It was
okay.
It was an Avengers level experience.
Well,
that was the idea.
Well, and speaking of level, folks, you are outside of the elevator shaft. The piece of art that they show for this thing is that behind you, at a distance, is the city of Hong Kong, and you are plummeting out of the sky. And I remember talking with Mr. Schul, who was eyeballing this piece of art, and it's like, well, that's clearly different tech than drives the current version of Tower of Terror. It's just sort of like, all right, not entirely sure how they're going to pull off that effect, but that looks interesting. Though, but again, we still have, and that's the thing. Disney is looking for different ways to bring the characters not only into the park but into the cruise line. And in fact, want to point out, folks, that if you Imagineering has begun releasing this set of videos lately, and one of the more recent things to pop up online was for Groot's Galaxy Spin. Did you get to see this, Dan?
Oh yes, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
All right.
It's it's what is it? It's sort of like Rocket and Group putting together, especially Rocket being one for scavenging parts. They've scavenged parts from all over the ship, the Adventure, and built their own spinning DJ booth.
Yeah,
and it's sort of like a spinner ride, similar to Dumbo or the Astro Orbiter. Yeah, I mean, it's a ride.
That's exactly, and this is the first. We've had the what is it? The Aqua Coaster, the on the other Disney Cruise Line, but for this, the 8th ship to join the fleet. And by the way, the Adventure coming online March 10th of next year. Yeah, this is a really for real ride, and just kind of interesting that Disney is going to go this route, especially when you take into consideration that that ship that's based out of Singapore, that Disney acquired when the company that was building it went into bankruptcy. And this is this is a ship that had hundreds, if not thousands, of square feet set aside for casinos, which, it's like, well, if Disney's already putting rides on the Adventure, what are they going to put on that boat?
Oh, boy. And what are park ops going to be like on a cruise ship?
Well, that is a question that perhaps you and I, Dan, can answer on a future episode of, Marvelous Disney. But for now, folks, 4th episode on the reboot here, coming to a close. And Dan and I sincerely hope that you're enjoying it. But, and if you have any suggestions for future stories or stuff that you would like Dan and I to discuss, well, Dan, where can the folks reach you?
Oh, you can find me on YouTube at The Hububbery. That's HUBBUBBERY. You could also email me at dan@thehububbery.com.
Okay. And As for me, I do a couple of other podcasts here at Jim Hill Media. We, of course, have Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. We've got Fine Tuning, our animation news podcast. That's with Drew Taylor of The Wrap. And then there is the Epic Universal podcast I do with Eric Hersey, who produces a lot of the shows here at Jim Hill Media. Likewise, in fact, we talked about this podcast earlier in the show, our Disney merch show. I Want That Too. I do that with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. And while we're relentlessly promoting things here, I want to remind you about Disney Unpacked, and that is the video series that Mr. Testa and I do for Patreon with veteran Imagineer Jim Schul. And let's see, as we close up shop here, look, if you enjoyed this episode, folks, if you could do Dan and I a favor, head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review Marvel Us Disney. That will help make people aware that this podcast is back. And again, you know, if you've got ideas, Marvel related stories you want Dan and I to touch on, feel free to reach out anytime. And okay, for now, that's going to do it. But Mr. Graney and I will be back in 2 weeks on November 26th. So probably at that point, we're in pre-tryptophan mode, right? You know, that it's okay.
That's exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, that we're smelling the turkey. We can't eat it yet. All right. Well, anyway, on behalf of Mr. Graney, thank you for listening. And we will be back soon.